I stated that he can keep doing food reviews in the Sprinter with his wife, Ronnie, which apparently is.
But you notice the shade that she threw? He can sit in his little Sprinter van with his family and Ronnie and his security.
And every day since we've been here, we've been in the Sprinter for at least 10 hours a day.
And then leads to somebody screaming,
why the f does Keith Lee need to hire a cultural strategist?
okay. Hey guys, it's Julesy and I am back for another video. As always, your best bet if you want more content from me is to join my Patreon. And if you are wondering what kind of content that I post on my Patreon, you can head over to my second YouTube channel, Julesy's BFFR, where I post previews and shortened clips of my Patreon content. We've been getting very busy. I have so much fun over there. And thank you to all the YouTube members and patrons who have supported me thus far. Now, today, I wanted to talk about a bit of outrage that I sparked amongst a specific class of Black men who love the opportunity to point their fingers, to wag their fingers, and tell a Black woman how she is absolutely positively wrong and just doing too much, when I posted a video discussing Keith Lee. Keith Lee is an extraordinarily popular influencer who does food reviews on TikTok, and he is currently on a redemption food tour. Now, by his own naming standard, his own nomenclature, Keith Lee called this current food tour, which is his second one, the redemption tour, after hitting a few roadblocks in a few cities on his first tour. And now on this redemption tour, on his recent tour of the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, but only the Maryland and Virginia parts that are connected to the DC metro. So that would largely be Northern Virginia and several counties along the eastern coastline of Maryland that qualify as the DMV area. You can ask a DMV native for the exact definition of what qualifies for the DMV. But in his tour, Keith Lee included the proper DMV and Baltimore. And he kind of hit another, not kind of, but he absolutely hit another roadblock in the DMV, where he came to TikTok and explained that some of the recommendations, some of the restaurant requests that he has historically fielded via his Instagram DMs, and I don't know if that also includes TikTok DMs, but oftentimes when he's showing screenshots, it's almost always an Instagram DM. But fielding requests and recommendations from his audience, from restaurateurs, from small businesses, he was left with food options that were dissatisfying, particularly in the DMV area. They were not restaurant businesses that were up to standard, that he felt comfortable, and in his words, that he felt what he could offer a productive critique or review of in content that he was comfortable with pushing out. I saw this, and in response to this, I posted a video saying that at this point in his career, Keith Lee needs a cultural strategist. And people took umbrage, anger, upsetness with me. How dare I suggest that a Black man improve his business strategy so that he could have more productive, quality content that fit his brand identity, his brand mission, and also could heighten his safety and security of not only himself, but his family as he goes on these food tours. How dare I do that? Because I am absolutely simply trying to bring down another Black man by suggesting a Black man who has over 16 million followers on TikTok alone hire someone to help him research and curate the list of businesses that he visits on his food tour.
We are witnessing the downfall of Keith Lee. The downfall of Keith Lee, and it's not to his own fault. It's just what niggas do, bro. Look at those comments, pause. Look who's in those comments. Bunch of melanin in those comments, specifically the female part.
Let's explore and let's further explain what exactly I meant. Now let's first talk about the outrage. Black men were upset that I referenced Keith Lee's handlers because,
I'm guessing this is the part of the video where you act like you know him better than the people who actually around him physically. You ain't just watching him like the rest of us on the app.
With much influence comes responsibility. And he's just at a point where he cannot fully take on this responsibility, even just with him and whatever few handlers he has.
Yep, there you go. It never fails.
You could have asked me what I meant. Handlers is a colloquial term that refers to the people behind the scenes in the entertainment industry who handle the unseen business. That would be managers, talent agents, publicists, legal team, various assistants, the bevy of people that get employed behind the scenes that allow notable celebrity. And at this point, Keith Lee actually is a celebrity for as much as he refrains and positions himself as just a normal human being. Normal human beings don't have 16 million followers. Normal human beings do not have sway over the food industry. They do not have an effect that can make or break a restaurant. Keith Lee at this point is a celebrity, and celebrities often have a bevy of people that work technically for them, but that are hired by them. And they might have their own companies. They might work with multiple artists. They might do a bevy of things, but they are colloquially, instead of having to list out all these people every time you talk about somebody and not knowing who they consistently are hiring or who they are keeping up with, but at minimum that they have some of these people employed at any given time, you call them their handlers because they handle the business behind the scenes. I stated that he can keep doing food reviews in the Sprinter with his wife, Ronnie, which apparently is...
But you notice the shade that she threw? He can sit in his little Sprinter van with his family and Ronnie and his security.
And every day since we've been here, we've been in the Sprinter for at least 10 hours a day.
And then leads to somebody screaming,
why the fuck does Keith Lee need to hire a cultural strategist?
Okay, and then there was this guy who stitched my follow-up video to, and not even stitch, because I have my duets and stitches turned off because I personally do not care to hear people's dumb, absolutely stupid takes. I don't like, seeing your face plastered all over social media with people misappropriating what you said, people simply participating in the outrage that TikTok loves to fuel. I just rather not deal with it. So I have it turned off. So these people are screen recording me to clip my videos and make claims that I'm not making. But a common pushback whenever you discuss Keith Lee is, he's just a regular man who loves to help businesses and that's why he's doing these food reviews. And I'm like, no, historically, Keith Lee is someone who wanted to pursue a content creation career that would allow him to provide for his family and to create a financially stable lifestyle for his family. And he was initially cooking food for his wife. He was then going to get her pregnancy cravings, and then they started ordering takeout and he started reviewing it. And that's how he got into food review, because that was the content that got the most engagement. And then when he was critiqued because the influence that he was coming to have, and honestly, Keith Lee at the point when he was like, all right, I need to be making more money because I need to provide for my family, he already had a large following on TikTok. Like, this man always was engaging a substantial audience on that app. And so when he decided that he was going to focus on figuring out what would stick as an influencer and content creator, and landed into food reviews, and he was having great influence, people noted that equity needed to be provided if you were going to give a restaurant a lot of visibility that gives an onslaught of people coming all of a sudden. And it's not even that Keith Lee directly was being critiqued at the time. I think because TikTok was a new app and a bunch of food reviewers were coming to great visibility and impacting smaller restaurants. And there was also a long-standing discourse about like when a legacy publication reviews a restaurant and all of a sudden it gets all these people visiting and it's selling out the food and they can't keep up and they don't have the staff and they don't have the equity, they don't have the cash assets, they don't have the labor across the board, they don't have the means to keep up with this opportunity the press bought in order to turn it into a sustainable success for a business. I'm not even saying that Keith Lee on his own was being critiqued that way, but that was a large overall critique. And Keith responded to that by being one of the first creators. And I would say this was a strategy that he kind of likely picked up from Mr. Beast, because this is something Mr. Beast does in donating money, following up, and highlighting the donations and the significance of them as part of his content and part of his brand strategy. I did not position any of this as inherently negative. I was just explaining it to highlight that this is a career. There's nothing wrong with this being a career. There's nothing wrong with Keith Lee being a businessman. He's providing successfully for his family. He's reached great success in becoming an influencer, in becoming a celebrity, whether or not that was his goal or not, and opening up this playing field of opportunity that allows him to live a life he never imagined, not just for himself, but also for his family. How would I state that and position it as a negative? The men are clipping my video because nowhere in my video do I say it's a negative. I just presented in the tone that I naturally talk with great confidence, because I naturally speak in a confident tone, and somehow that is absolutely negative. As much as I find it absolutely ridiculous being upset about me saying Keith Lee is a cultural strategist and or denoting that he drives around in a Sprinter to do his reviews, the work that Keith Lee and myself and most creators do is a deep privilege, especially when we have the means to take off work and take time to care for our families as need be. Only 14 states plus DC have enacted mandatory paid family leave systems. If you need to take time off because you've just given birth to a child, you have lost a close loved one, you become a caretaker to someone with profound needs. Most of us in the United States do not have the option to take time off from work to properly care for our families. But this is a huge opportunity for advocacy work. And you can start by learning about your state's work laws and then advocating for paid family leave plans. I have a link right here and down below in the description box, linking to bipartisanpolicy.org for more information about your state work laws and the advocacy work you can do around positively impacting paid family leave programs and job protection. Now back to the topic at hand. Now let's not focus too much on the hollow-headed men, because babes, I just block them. Block every last one of them on all social media apps and never have to deal with them again. And I'm going to block every one of their peons that comes to my page and say I'm hiding my hand and deflecting, because how dare I suggest that Keith Lee get a cultural strategist? Then another man who, I get it, the aesthetics, the optics, glasses, clean shaven, properly dressed, well lit. I shit post and yap on TikTok. I do it from my couch and my robe, no makeup on, fresh face, looking kind of dry sometimes. And this man comes on, looks nice, wears glasses, and almost bar for bar says the exact same thing I do. And the comments are so much more nicer. I'm getting threatened in the DMs. I have filtered comments full of nasty rebuttals to me suggesting that Keith Lee needs a cultural strategist. Yikes. I'm going to block all of them after this video, but I needed to provide receipts first. So here, you have them. TikTok loves outrage, and it will fuel it at any cost. Fortunately, I'm in the creator fund, so I do get a little coin for all of this. We're going to take it and keep it rolling. But let's break down, what do I mean by a cultural strategist, and why would I ever suggest that Keith Lee needs one? As I kind of explained at the beginning of the video, Keith Lee is on his second food tour, where he's calling it the Redemption Tour. What I think, and I am not necessarily going to give his entire like fact for fact background here. But a quick overview, Keith Lee previously went to Atlanta, which is one of his most notable roadblocks in going to Atlanta and visiting, even though he says he goes to small businesses and mom and pop shops that need help with marketing. He went to popular brunch restaurants in Atlanta and had a array of Atlanta-based experiences, because Atlanta is not a real place. It is Black Hollywood. It absolutely operates on celebrity. And at Candy Burris's restaurant, at Milk and Honey, he's having experiences that he does not appreciate, that does not allow him to produce the kind of content he wants. And then he sparks a bit of outrage when Milk and Honey responds to Keith Lee's video. And Keith, let's be clear here. TikTok loves outrage. Keith Lee does not strike me at all as a person who loves outrage. So what that means is, yes, Keith Lee can post any kind of content, and especially when he's hinting at negativity or things not going the way he would have liked, negativity, and people can take that and throw outrage and just throw rage back at someone else. They will take it and run with it regardless of what Keith Lee actually says in his video, because people and TikTok app loves outrage. So they will take it and run with it, and his numbers will go up. So by no means am I saying that he's not getting the engagement, he's not getting the numbers, he's like declining in success, but you can have great numbers and still not be happy with the content. And I think Keith Lee in numerous ways has expressed not being satisfied with the content that he is producing from this current food tour, and not feeling that it meets his, what you call, brand integrity. That means, does it consistently align with how you want to be represented on the internet and to the public? The integrity of your brand, does it uphold with the content you produce? And when he gets online and says, particularly to the DMV, that because of what he was, the pictures he was seeing, the lack of cleanliness, water, him having a shellfish allergy and cross-contamination across all these weird experiences he's having across all these restaurants, he cannot put out content that is productive.
Me and my family are still in the DMV, and there's a few things I want to talk about, so let's talk about it. I know we only posted about 3 spots from Washington, but we went to about 12, and we made a decision as a family and as a team, and also a personal decision to not post most of them. So out of those 12, I probably only got like 1 or 2 more that I'm gonna post. And the reason for that, a lot of those videos, in my opinion, aren't constructive at all. Restaurants out here, in my opinion, tend to lean towards promoting alcohol more than they promote food. That's been headlines more than us being in an actual city and being blessed enough to touch the people that we touch. Granted, a lot of people that was extremely nice. We even went to a comedy show randomly, but that's another reason why I'm keeping most of those videos, to protect the restaurant owners, because it's not going to be constructive, and it's just going to be them getting tore down, and I don't want that.
That to me sounds like he cannot put out content that aligns with his brand integrity, his brand mission, and his brand identity. It is not sufficient for him. Hence why I said in my video that he was on his 2nd or 3rd failed food tour. Keith Lee is not at all failing, but when you do not come out with the content that you would like to produce, you did not succeed. Even if you have success in numbers, you still making the bag, you're still getting what you need. As a content creator and as someone who has been in this business for almost 15 years, can you believe it? Putting together content that you are not proud of, regardless of how well received it is a weight on your mental health. You want to be happy. You want to feel proud and be able to stand by the integrity. And Keith Lee strikes me as this kind of person who wants to stand by the integrity of the content he is putting out and feeling that it well represents him. He does not want to strike the outrage machine every time he posts on TikTok just to go viral. He doesn't have to do that. And I think part of why DMV failed is because Keith Lee has 16 million followers on TikTok. When he posts to social media and says, hey guys, I'm coming to this city, give me your recommendations, and he himself is filtering through his comments. For context, I have 60,000, around 60-something thousand on Instagram, 60,000 something on TikTok. When I post something and I ask for recommendations, or I post something and just 200-300 people DM me, it is overwhelming. There is no way humanly possible for even Keith Lee and one other or two other assistants to filter through those comments and figure out who is recommending restaurants and suggesting businesses in earnest, meaning who's doing it in good faith, who actually understands the brand identity and integrity that Keith Lee upholds and understands his mission in the 3 to 4 tiers he has for the different restaurants he's willing to review, and who actually wants to see positive content that aligns with Keith's brand identity, who's actually recommending spots with that in mind, and as we would say, in earnest, in good faith, and who is looking to strike the outrage machine because they think it would be quite funny for someone who has as much brand integrity, has as much integrity and humbleness and godliness that they promote in their brand, someone who generally comes across as a very nice and kind human being, to dog out and to talk about and confirm your own negative experiences at specific restaurants, called baiting. How many of these recommendations are baiting Keith Lee into having to produce negative content because this person likes outrage? Anybody in the Washington, D.C. area knows not to recommend oohs and ahs. They passed their prime. Let it go. There is no reason for Keith Lee to be going to that restaurant knowing the sort of content that he likes to produce. He wants to do something historic to DC, go to Ben's Chili Bowl, go to an Ethiopian restaurant. Y'all don't need to be baiting him into going places. And then also, there are people who just want to get the Keith Lee effect and get the visibility on their brand, but maybe they're not ready. Maybe they're not it. Having a shellfish allergy at the level that Keith Lee has it can be a matter of life or death. Having someone who understands I keep saying brand identity, so why cultural strategists, companies like any TV and production company from Disney, Netflix on down, they hire at minimum researchers. They sometimes hire cultural strategists who come in and ensure that the content is in line and the tonality and the way they are going about it tracks with the audience they are trying to reach. And so for Keith Lee, it's not that the formatting of him being in the car, of him getting to go, of him and his wife or his family members trying the food and rating it 1 through 10, of him having these genuine connections with his fan base and with the restaurant owners, none of that would be lost because they would still be taking recommendations from the public. So that doesn't mean inherently always having positive reviews, but instead, it sets Keith Lee up to always have reviews that he feels comfortable producing. He always have reviews that again and again and again align with his brand identity. The accusation that Keith Lee has a limited palate is not something that I discussed or I put in my video, because watching Keith Lee again and again and again, watching Keith Lee go from somebody who eats for fitness, for fighting, watching their macros and their weight gain, to someone who is expanding their palate, eating for taste and community, and being able to foster community through his work, both in reaching out to mom and pop shops and transforming their success, and the fact that he travels with his family and they are part of this process and, building family connections. That is enjoyable to watch. I think that is part of his brand identity. That is what keeps an audience attached to him and engaged with him. So the limited palette is actually an asset to Keith, which is why he doesn't need to be Anthony Bourdain. I am nowhere suggesting that he come in and have all this historical research and knowledge about a restaurant before he goes. Someone is just helping to navigate to ensure that the nefarious aspects of the work he does and engaging with the public has less of a chance to reach him. Because Keith Lee in the past has tipped over into drama, or people are attempting to manipulate his brand for drama outright, with getting him to go to food trucks, and creators who all they do is get online and rage bait, being workers at these food trucks, and then whole drama that makes no sense comes out of it because people are just baiting for engagement. They are creating drama for engagement, in particular with the sweet, it was a food truck owned by a Black woman whose son was an influencer, and who the worker she hired for the day, Sherelle Hodge, is an influencer. And both the son and Sherelle do rage baiting content nonstop every day. That is their brand. And Sherelle was able to get Keith Lee to come out to that food truck and try it. And then all this drama popped off. And honestly, the drama made no sense. And then a year later, the son tried to pull up Keith Lee's name again to drum up some drama again for engagement and views. People like that should have absolutely no access to Keith Lee. And I think having someone to help go through, research, strategize, feel out the field first ensures that less of that happens. You're never going to get to a net zero altogether, but making sure that they are not spending 10, 12 hours in a car driving around all day trying to find something that they can produce content around makes life easier, safer, and more enjoyable for Keith Lee and his family. I don't know why people are so opposed to the idea that as somebody grows and their success and their reach reaches to new, far out, never thought of heights, that they would have to evolve with their following. I don't know what it is about talking about Keith Lee that really gets people to turn off the right side of their brain and be like, no, and whatever argument they can make to say that he's just a simple guy, he's just a humble guy, you're doing too much, why wouldn't you want him to have a more productive time as he goes on this tour? This man has 2 young children. Him nor his wife want to sit in a car for 10 hours a day trying to get 3, 4, 5 videos out when they can do it in a matter of 5 to 6 hours and then have more time either for themselves as parents with some free time to explore a city and actually have fun doing what they do, and or have more time with their children. I genuinely don't understand pushback to suggesting that he get a cultural strategist and researcher, because yes, with great influence comes responsibility. Keith Lee can essentially make or break a restaurant without even really trying. People are so eager to see someone as nice as him say something negative, and they will pull it out no matter how many warnings and boundaries Keith Lee verbally sets in his videos, and he tells people to not go after these restaurants and tells people to not go look it up. In his DMV, I can't even produce any content around these food experiences. He's simply showing images of restaurants that were suggested to him. He's not naming, he's not saying the location, nothing. Absolutely, people went and found these restaurants to go harass the restaurants. People again and again will bait because they enjoy, it makes them feel intelligent to go yell and be mean and degrading to somebody. Other people need it for the engagement. There are a bevy of reasons why people will seek access to Keith Lee directly to rage bait. And it's wild that I got so much negative response. I mean, honestly, a lot of the response was very positive. A lot of people agree with me. A lot of people expanded upon it. But the amount of men and young people that were like, oh, you're doing too much. You want to see this man fail. You're a hater. My goodness. My gosh. I did not mean it that way. And I don't know why people would take it that way. But even when you tweet or post it on Threads, the same thing. And honestly, the same thing, the nice young guy just eating food in his car, why do you want him to be anything more? Keith Lee, out of his own mouth, is producing his own series. It's meant to compete with a TV series. This would also help him to be more better position when he works with a bigger network, when he goes for the bigger opportunity, to be able to sit down and demand the right things and negotiate not only a setup, not only a monetary value, but also a production operation that works for him because he has a direct experience with it already. This is only setting him up to succeed anymore. Does he have to do what I'm suggesting? No. Not at all. At no point did I position that if he doesn't do it, he is absolutely going to be canceled or finished or whatever. Like, obviously, he's still running up the numbers with the content he is producing. But as somebody who understands intricately the implications that the content you produce has on your mental health, that the work it takes to produce this sort of content has on your well-being, and on the sacrifices you have to make when it comes to your family life and spending time with your children, when there are ways to lower that sacrifice, to lower that barrier to entry, to create less work for yourself, why not consider it? Anyhow, I hope people understand what I'm saying here. And you get me. But thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you on the other side. That other side being my Patreon. Deuces.